While Victorian adults were busy renting pineapples and hiring hermits, their children were being sold to factory owners, poisoned by phosphorus, and photographed dead as a keepsake. 1 in 3 people in Victorian England was under 15. The Victorians looked at that statistic and thought, "Ooh, labour force." Here are 15 things Victorian children were simply expected to do. No complaints, no questions, no childhood. Number 15. Children as young as 5 worked underground in coal mines. Boys and girls as young as 5 were sent into mine shafts because their bodies fit in spaces adults couldn't reach. Stripped to almost nothing and chained to coal carts, they dragged loads through tunnels in complete darkness for 12-hour shifts. The youngest job was called trapper, sitting alone in a hole, holding a string attached to a ventilation door, pulling it open when they heard the carts coming. In complete darkness all day, age 5. They worked below ground, others worked above it, inside the walls. Number 14. Chimney sweeps were starved to keep them small. Masters deliberately underfed child chimney sweeps to keep them thin enough to fit inside flues as narrow as 14 inches across. Boys as young as 6 climbed in near darkness, using their backs and knees to inch upward, scraping soot with their bare hands until calluses formed. If they got stuck, sometimes nobody knew. Some were left to die inside the walls of the houses they were cleaning. Their employers called it an occupational hazard. Number 13. They were given opium to stop crime. Laudanum, opium dissolved in alcohol, was sold over the counter and handed to infants to keep them quiet. Products like Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup were essentially heroin for babies, widely advertised, completely legal. Doctors knew it caused illness and death, they prescribed it anyway. Silence was more important than survival. Nap time had a body count. And the drugs were just the beginning of what passed for childcare. Number 12. They posed for photos with their dead siblings. Post-mortem photography was standard. When a child died, which happened constantly, families would dress the body, prop it upright with hidden clamps, paint eyes on the closed eyelids, and pose surviving siblings around it for a family portrait. For many families, it was the only photograph they'd ever own. A dead child, eyes painted open, arm around a living one, framed on the mantel, normal. The dead got portraits, the living got minds. Number 11. Orphans were legally sold to factory owners. Workhouses regularly sold orphaned and abandoned children to mill and factory owners as pauper apprentices. They signed contracts binding them until adulthood, received no wages, and lived on site in overcrowded buildings. By 1800, there were an estimated 20,000 of them in cotton mills alone. If they ran away, they were caught, beaten, and returned. Some were shackled with irons riveted around their ankles. The law called it apprenticeship. It was slavery with paperwork. Some were bound by iron, others had their faces eaten away by it. Number 10. Match factory girls had their jaws eaten away by phosphorus. Children, mainly girls, who worked in match factories spent their days dipping matchsticks into white phosphorus paste. The fumes caused phossy-jaw, a disease where the jawbone slowly died, rotted, and glowed green in the dark. It caused brain damage and organ failure. The treatment was surgical removal of the jaw. The alternative was death. The factories knew matches were cheap, children were cheaper. Number 9. Textile mill children were scalped and maimed by running machines. Children crawled under running machinery to clear blockages because the machines weren't turned off. They were small enough to fit, that was the qualification. Falling asleep at the loom meant being pulled in. Scalping, crushed fingers, and severed limbs were logged as routine. They made the cloth, they wore rags, Britain called it industry. Number 8. They waded through raw sewage looking for scrap metal. Mudlarks were children aged 6 to 15 who worked the banks of the Thames at low tide, barefoot, wading through human waste, animal corpses, broken glass, and raw sewage to scavenge scraps of coal or metal to sell. They earned almost nothing. They were cut constantly. Henry Mayhew, who interviewed them in the 1850s, described them as so covered in filth they were barely recognizable as children. Mayhew wrote it down. The city stepped over them anyway. Number 7. They swept horse manure off streets for pennies. Crossing sweepers, mostly boys, swept a path through the permanent carpet of horse dung at busy intersections so that wealthier pedestrians could cross without soiling their shoes. Paid in tips, which were not guaranteed. No employer, no wages, just a broom, a patch of filth they'd fight other children to control, and the hope that a gentleman would feel generous. Charles Dickens wrote about them. Nobody did much else. Number 6. Girls were corseted into correct posture. Victorian girls were fitted with stiffened bodices and corset-like stays from an early age, on the grounds that it was medically necessary. The Victorians believed a child's spine would collapse without structural reinforcement. Health, they said, completely necessary. The girls said nothing because they couldn't breathe deeply enough to argue. Number 5. Getting trousers meant you were old enough to work. Until the age of 3 or 4, Victorian boys wore frocks and tunics, indistinguishable from girls. When they finally got trousers, it wasn't a celebration of childhood, it was a promotion into productivity. You earned pants by being old enough to be useful, and the moment you were, the expectations began. Pink was for boys, blue was for girls, and childhood was for children whose families could afford to let them have one. Number 4. They were expected to wear full morning dress for 9 months. When a family member died, children under 12 were dressed in black mourning clothing for up to 9 months. Babies wore white garments trimmed with black ribbon. Not optional, a social obligation. A toddler in black crepe, banned from colourful clothing, attending funerals as a costumed participant in adult grief. Because appearances mattered more than children's feelings. That was, in fact, the entire principle. Number 3. School children were beaten for writing with the wrong hand. Victorian schools beat left-handed children until they switched to their right, not as punishment for misbehaviour, as a matter of policy. Children with learning difficulties were classified as lazy, which meant more hitting. Education was memory, obedience, and fear, in that order. They went to school to be corrected. Some never came back at all. Number 2. Girls as young as 5 were sent into domestic service. Girls aged 5 and up were placed in domestic service, available around the clock, responsible for fires, floors, children, and every request of the household above them. No days off, no contract protections, no recourse if their employer was cruel. The 1851 census recorded over 120,000 child domestic servants. They were the furniture that talked, and were expected to talk as little as possible. They served the wealthy weren't done with them yet. Number 1. They were expected to not exist as children. The Victorian concept of childhood, protected, playful, innocent, was a luxury available to a tiny minority. For the majority, the moment a child could walk steadily and follow instructions, it was an economic unit. There was no protected period, there was no too young. 5-year-olds in mines, 6-year-olds in chimneys, girls in service before primary school. The era that gave the world the Christmas card, the children's novel, and the nursery rhyme ran almost entirely on the labour of children who'd never read one. They built the world that romanticised childhood. They were not invited to it. If that ruined your day, good. This wasn't a footnote in Victorian history, it was the system, running exactly as designed on the people least able to resist it. The next video doesn't get any lighter. Subscribe, I'll see you there.